I think there's a couple things that might be important. One of the big things I think is that tech doesn't have to be specific to an industry, right? Like I work in interior design, but my entire technology, lineup is applicable to any business. It's not just applicable to my own.
I saw that
So,
on your recent Instagram post. So I can definitely, ask about that.
okay. And then I put together, I'll have my assistant put together all of the tech that we do use and all the platforms that we've used. And she kind of separated it into client facing, client deliverables, and then client facing on like the money and time part, and then team and task management, and then marketing. And we've got like little icons for all the different platforms that we use. And then I also have little asterisks by what I used when I was working on my own, and then what we've added since we've grown as a team.
Okay. Great. I can definitely bring up those questions as well.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right, y'all ready?
Yeah, and I'm just, for time wise, we can go, so conversation probably for until 11:40ish, then 10 minutes Q&A, or how?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, we have a call at noon.
Okay.
So, I mean, this last one ended at 57, and I couldn't start this one until right at 11. And so if you guys go a little bit over, it's no issue.
Awesome. Okay.
Awesome. I'm going to let people in.
Awesome.
Okay. Amy, when do you think you want me to share my screen and share this slideshow? Like at what point?
After introductions.
Okay.
Are we live?
You should be.
Awesome. Hey everybody, welcome to this session with San Antonio Startup Week. Super excited to be facilitating conversation with Shawna, CEO of Styleberry. The session today, as you know, using tech to scale your creative business. So we'll be hearing about Shawna and how she has used technology to scale up her own business and the process of building up her tech stack and how that's changed throughout her time, with her business, and a little bit about her own balance between scaling her business and doing life. So before we get into that, I'll introduce myself and Shawna can introduce herself and her business. I'm Amy Garza-Lee, a 2020 Venture for America Fellow, and also project manager at Dura Software, a software startup downtown. And Shawna, do you mind giving a brief introduction about yourself and Styleberry?
Sure. My name is Shawna Percival, and I own Styleberry Creative Interiors. I've got a team that is part local and then actually part international. And so we've used tech to kind of keep us together and run during the pandemic. We design fresh and relaxed interiors here in San Antonio and well beyond.
Awesome. And how long have you been doing this so far?
So my career has spanned over a decade, but we've really drilled into what we're doing, I would say, in the last 3 years. I moved back to San Antonio in 2016, and then things kind of took off from there.
Awesome. Well, I guess we can start digging into this. I just have one question before we, I guess, to kind of kick things off, in the middle of a pandemic. I'd love to hear about how the pandemic has shifted your business and any pivots you've had to make because of that.
Yeah, it's been pretty huge. We had a full pipeline in March that was moving forward, and come time of the pandemic, nearly every project that we had canceled. And of course, that dries up everything, my ability to function as a business, pay my employees. And then also my children came home from school and we were on lockdown. And how on earth do I design homes when I can't leave mine?
Yeah.
It was really tricky. So we very, very quickly pivoted, and I started offering digital consults. So we would do, 1 hour Zoom sessions. We started doing remote gallery walls, and it took about 6 weeks, but within about 6 weeks, we were ready to launch like full on virtual design. So I essentially took the exact same model that I had been using locally and then used all the tech that we had been using here and kind of applied it and then added some new technology platforms to keep things going. And we started, serving clients across the country. And, last week we presented a room in Colorado. And at the same time, we presented a room here in San Antonio. So we are kind of straddling both. We're doing some local work and we're also, going full-fledged virtual because I think there's a huge market and I think it's actually a beautiful pivot for my industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that seems really, relatively pretty quick to launch a whole new virtual design, platform and offering in 6 weeks. So how did you prepare for that? And I'm sure did you have to adopt a lot of new technology, or did your pretty much what you had been using, was that really supportive, or how were you able to do it so quickly?
The only thing that we added was Zoom. Everything else kind of remained in place. I use a tool in my industry for all of my client presentations that we call our online studio. So for me, it's always been important to keep things organized. Mm-hmm. So for all of our client presentations, whenever we specify, all the items that go into a room, everything's already organized in an online studio. So the biggest challenge for us was putting together, instructions. Like, how do I teach a client how to measure their space? How do I teach a client how to photograph a space? So we used Zoom for client meetings, and we also used Loom to teach, clients how to do this and kind of record our screens so we could teach them how to get us what we needed to do our job. But the rest of it truly followed the same model that we have been using, for years.
Wow, that's awesome. So for these new clients who maybe weren't used to, using tech in this space or going with an interior designer who uses technology, was there, any pushback, or what was that process like from getting clients who aren't used to using an interior designer that utilizes tech, getting them on board with it?
I would say a lot of our clients have never worked with a designer before. So we get to set the bar, which is really exciting. The other really interesting thing that happened during the pandemic is so many of my local clients reached out to work with us virtually, even though they were here in San Antonio. So they were already used to how we do business. And it was just a matter of Zoom meetings versus in-person meetings. And a lot of my clients are business owners or executives. I've got a lot of physician and attorney clients. And as they were venturing into telehealth and, virtual meetings themselves, that was really the only part of the process that we changed that has now become a cultural norm.
Oh, wow. And what was the process like for getting clients outside of San Antonio? Was that something that you had done already, or was that just post-COVID?
I started a blog, 14 years ago, before blogging was the thing. And so I've been building an audience over the course of many years. And up until the pandemic, a lot of the people who have followed my journeys through motherhood and, what the content of my former blog, which was a lot based on, healthy living and motherhood, they never had the opportunity to work with me. And so this actually opened up the possibility of those longtime followers, and then also some new followers who have found us through hashtags, and Instagram marketing has been a really big thing for us. I blog as well. And so SEO that came from the blog has been really helpful. But honestly, I think Instagram is probably the biggest gatherer of new clients for us.
Wow, that's awesome. So is there any other, I wanted to ask a little bit about social media. Did your Instagram, marketing or presence, or the way you viewed Instagram, has that, changed a lot since you've been doing virtual design, or since COVID happened?
I would say yes. And here's why. Like, prior to COVID, most of our clients, at least for full service design, aren't on social media. There are a few that find us after they've been referred to us, but most of our new clients, we don't get them initially straight out of social media. So what I found interesting is that lowering our price points to meet a virtual client, which is it's a retail shopper versus like a higher end shopper, just a different segment of the market, which I love to work with. That opened up this Instagram friendly, mindset. And I wouldn't say, maybe that's the wrong term. I would say these clients are on Instagram. They're looking on Instagram for inspiration. This is where they're going to figure out where they're going to decorate, or how they're going to decorate their home. Same segment as Pinterest. So Instagram definitely started the conversation. And then as the pandemic started, I had two choices, right? I could have shut down, rolled over, said, all right, my kids need me, I'm out. But I didn't. I chose instead to market. And the first thing we launched during the pandemic was our refresh challenge, which essentially helped people shop their house and redesign their space with what they already had. And so we had like a 12-day challenge that went through, actually, I think it was 10 days. And that the first 2 weeks we just kind of pushed, because in the back of my mind, I'm thinking the marketing that you're doing is for clients 6 months from now. It's not necessarily for clients right now. So instead of, recoiling and trying to figure things out, we just went for it, because when you're home and you're stuck at home, what makes you happy? Looking at things that you love and being in a place that you love. So for us, it just made sense to just kind of get after it and keep going.
That's such a great story of the way you pivoted, especially being in this, this space. So that challenge seems so exciting, and I'm feeling inspired to do that myself now. My office or living room.
Yeah, well, we've got a free guide on the website. So if you go to our resources, you can definitely download the guide. The other thing that we had done in January is we talked a lot about workspaces. So way back in January, I was blogging about, how to create an effective workspace. And then all of a sudden, everybody needed to create workspaces in their house, like right away. And so what we did is, we pulled some of that content that was already created, and we have a checklist, like a free downloadable checklist that clients could access to really help. Like the way I looked at everything is we are in a unique position to help. Like I really can help people at home. And so, my business was uniquely positioned to really kind of step in and do it.
Yeah, definitely, with everyone, having their own home office. Such a great way to, help people during this time.
Yeah, it was great. So, along with Instagram marketing, those freebies, of course, are lead magnets. And so that helps to build my email list. And then at the same time, we were published in San Antonio Magazine because they did a whole home office spread. And so it's one of those things where you just got to keep the momentum going, right? Like every little bit you do matters. It's not all in one bucket. Like a little bit of Instagram, a little bit of email, a little bit of blogging, a little bit of print media. It all adds up.
That's interesting about the print media as well. So what was that? I guess what was the impact of that article that they did on you, and how did that come to be?
So, the editors of San Antonio Magazine are wonderful. And Rebecca has been very friendly with us in the past. And I've always wanted to serve our local community. Like that's always been really important to me. So she did a feature on, and Kathleen together did a feature on home offices. And so that was the kind of the first foray into print. And then back in I believe it was the September issue with the river on the cover, there was actually a 2-page spread on our pivot to virtual design, which was also amazing. And so helpful. Like you think that the internet is the only place where marketing matters. And I think it's a combination of print and the digital, because one leads to the other and the other brings in clients, and then they get to know you on Instagram, and it keeps the cycle alive.
Yeah. And it seems like that print media also was special for having that impact here locally, where people could see like, oh, this is happening in my own community. And
absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because virtual design doesn't have to be nationwide. We've essentially created a whole new business model to serve a whole new segment of the population here in San Antonio. It's kind of like mix and match design. And the only way I've been able to do that is with technology. And you know, especially as my team continues to grow and I continue to lean on them to help me do this, there's just no way we could do it without our tech stack.
Yeah, so good transition. Yeah, one of your recent Instagram posts, I saw you put that only one platform you use is actually unique to interior design and the rest of your tech stack isn't. So I would love to hear about the current tech stack you use, and then we can dive into this topic.
Yeah, I think that would be great, because I think especially as you're starting out as a new business owner, you don't know where to start. You know, what comes first? What do you need first? How do you wear all the hats? How do you do all the things? And so I've got a little slideshow. Can I share my screen? You okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I'm gonna pull this up. Okay, scaling your business with tech. So fancy. So a little bit about our firm. Okay, so I've got this broken up into a couple different categories. Of course, there's a whole client-facing end of any business. There's a whole back end. There's financial. There's financial that's client-facing and on the back end. And then we have deliverables as well. So I would say, as we're looking at this lineup of client-facing tools, this is what we use for initial client contact. This is what we use for the onboarding process. And this is also what we use for some of our marketing. So Dubsado is our client, management system. So everything, first touch clients have with us is usually through Dubsado. So they'll enter their contact information off our website, and then, we've got workflows built in there. I have found Dubsado a little tricky to use myself. So, prior to that, I'd used 17 Hats, but I felt like we outgrew it. So one of the questions I had on the session is, did you hire someone to help, or did you, watch tutorials? Like, how do you learn how to use all these platforms? And I would say for Dubsado, I hired out. So I had somebody help me set that up. But before that, I just watched a bunch of YouTube videos, and a lot of the videos that each platform, kind of links to you and sends you in their nurture sequence after you sign up. So 17 Hats, and then we've used Calendly until Dubsado launched their booking, feature. So Calendly is super great to eliminate the back and forth of emails. I've always used WordPress, both for my website and for my blog. Dropbox is essential, particularly as we pivoted into virtual design. So we use Dropbox on like the inside of our business for a long time. And then as we launched virtual design, we actually opened that up to clients because we asked them to upload a lot of things for us to review. So that's been for, both inside and outside the organization. Loom is an amazing screen recording tool that, helps clients understand, like, we're able to walk through, here's what's included in our virtual design. Here is how to measure your space, because that's really tough to teach. So you wouldn't think so, but there's a very specific order that interior designers use when we approach measuring a space. So, but again, this would work for any industry if you're trying to teach someone how to provide you with the tools you need to do your job. Zoom, of course, and then the Google lineup. We use Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Drive for a lot of the interior, like the communication inside the organization.
Yeah, this is awesome. So quick question on Loom. That one's really interesting. Because it seems so, pivotal for what you do, especially virtually. So how did you find this specific tool, and how did you choose to use that one?
For Loom? So I actually found Loom through a couple of my teammates. I have an online business manager. So she works remote, and there were so many times where I'm like, I don't understand how to use Dubsado. Can you please help me? I need help with this part. Like, I don't get it. And so she would do the little Loom video and send it over to me. And so I learned about it from her. And then I also use Loom with my graphic designer as well as my copywriter. And it has helped all three of us work in tandem. So I feel like when you can show someone your screen and talk to them, and move your cursor and show them exactly what you're talking about, it just gets so much easier to work remotely.
Yeah. And this seems like it's been helpful both, for your clients and also internally for your team.
For sure. integral, I would say.
Yeah. So
For
yeah,
sure.
I'm curious to know like what people in this space are if they're not using any of this. I just wonder how they, interact with their clients.
I can't imagine. And, I, I can't imagine doing my job without it, without any of these. Like, it would be impossible. So I'm pretty grateful that there are all these tools available to us.
Yeah. And I guess, are there any that aren't on this list that you did use that maybe you had to, get rid of, that weren't working?
Yeah, I have no problem being pretty ruthless with our technology platforms. If something is not working, I will cut it and I will not look back. So we have gone through some different time tracking stuff that just didn't work for us. I'm actually playing with a new time tracking system right now. And these, of course, are not all of the platforms that we use. And I can definitely talk through those. Calendly was nice, but I'm a big fan of paying for one thing that does it all instead of paying for 4 different things that may work together, may not work together. So if you don't have a client management system that has a booking tool, Calendly is great. But if you do, like Dubsado has it integrated, then it's why pay an extra $100, $200 a year?
Yeah,
So
so true. So for client facing, do you have maybe internal facing that you want to share, or or client? Okay.
yeah, so I'll get there. The next tool, or I guess the next segment that we have here, is our deliverables. So obviously, any business that's going to sell something is going to deliver something to the client. So ours tends to be conceptual and part of a conversation. So on the back end for our deliverables, we use the Adobe Creative Suite a lot. We use SketchUp for all of our renderings. And then we use Zoom in order to present these. And then, of course, we also use our online studio, which is really only interior design applicable. So on the client facing side for finances, I think that's another really important part of an organization. So through Dubsado, we use Stripe for most of our payments, which is pretty easy. We use QuickBooks if Stripe fails, which Stripe is not compatible for e-checks with a lot of local San Antonio banks.
Oh, wow.
And since a lot of our clients are here, if you have Frost or Broadway Bank, it's not going to work for an e-check. So we use QuickBooks for all the management of the organization too. And I outsource. I have a bookkeeper that does all of that. I use Zelle to pay local trades. I think it's important that people know that Venmo is not intended to be used for business. It's actually not legal. So, Zelle is a nice alternative. It's similar concept as Venmo, but it's acceptable as far as, the legality of an organization to organization goes. And then like I said, we've used a couple different time tracking systems, and I'm transitioning into Toggle, which is nice because you can use it on your phone, you can use it on your browser. It'll remind you to track your time on your browser. And then you can also bill clients because some of our work is billable by hour. So we're able to turn those into billable.
Awesome. And then for these platforms and tools, I guess at what point how long did it take for these systems to evolve, or what were you using? At what point did you realize like, oh, I need maybe if you ever used Venmo, like when do I have to stop using Venmo? When should I transition to Zelle? Or what was that process like for the financial part of it?
Yeah, I used to manage my finances on my own when I was smaller and doing, a smaller amount of revenue. And I started with 17 hats, and then I used Wave Accounting, which is another online cloud-based platform that's great for small businesses on a much smaller scale. So my business essentially has 3 separate businesses within it. We have conceptual, we sell things, we sell furniture and accessories. So it's kind of like we also have a store, and then we also have this whole time billing model. So it's been really tricky to manage all of that. And once I got to a point where I could outsource it, that was like the very first thing that I outsourced before I even had employees, because I like to keep things super clean. So, listening to my CPA and then the bookkeepers that work in conjunction with one another, and their advice to use some of these different tools and how to use them was pivotal. And I will also say that a lot of industries do have CPAs or accountants, well, I guess we're the same thing, but bookkeepers that are unique to their industry. So like I work with people who specialize in interior design, so they know, and I think I didn't even know that people like that existed, but they do.
Oh, wow. And how was the process of outsourcing some of this? What was that like?
It was tricky. I had my first bookkeeper, actually I'm on my third and I finally love them. The first two, just little things didn't work. And, there was like your intuition's like, I should not be doing this. I should not be having to tell you how to do this. And then so again, I'm a little bit ruthless and letting go what's not working, in a kind and clear way. But it was tricky, and it's been a lot of just setting up the process. Like anything, you have to be crystal clear as a business owner to set up your process, define it, clarify it, because you're not going to be able to lead your team or have anyone help you if you don't have your process, delineated.
I think, well, there's one question that came in that I think is really applicable to what we're talking about. So I'll just, we can answer it. I think a lot of small teams and small businesses try to figure out tech ourselves. So what advice or insights would you give to know when it's time to hire out and get expert help?
I think it's pivotal to learn how to use your tech yourself right off the bat. I wouldn't hire anyone to do it for me until I fully understand how to use it myself, because what happens if that person just ups and leaves, right?
True.
If you can't function and you don't have a baseline understanding of how things work, then your entire organization is reliant on somebody else, which is a really scary place to be. So, I have a baseline understanding of how all of this works, how everything goes together. And I'm constantly, like, every week, every day. I mean, I look at QuickBooks every single day, even though I don't manage it.
Mm-hmm.
I am in Dubsado every single day. So basically my business manager will queue things up for me, but I have the final review. I have the last say. I push approve and send. So even though I'm having someone manage it for me, they are not the one fully running it without me having any idea what's going on.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess that also helps establish trust with all your clients too, when you can speak to every tool you use and you know how it works. So yeah, that's really good advice.
Yeah. The only thing I will say, so we do, and by we, I mean, my technical designer, Kennedy, does all of the drawings for our projects. And learning how to draw was not something that I wanted to invest my time and energy into. So she does all of our technical drawings for our projects. So some of those things that are industry specific, as a CEO, you have to remove yourself from, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't do everything and run the organization. Like you have to delegate. So, things like that, very specific tasks and skills, I feel like it's not a bad idea to hire out for, even if you don't know how to do them. But I think at a baseline, it's important to know how everything works and how it, fits into the big picture.
Yeah, great points. Yeah, next tools maybe?
Yes. Okay, hang on. There we go. Team and task management. So this is huge, right? Especially as your creative business begins to grow, because what used to just live on your computer and your notebooks and your spreadsheets, like now has to dictate how everybody else runs their day. So the first thing that I implemented once I started hiring is Asana.
Okay.
Asana is key to my organization's well-being. That is the number one place where everything is tasked out. That's where we manage all the projects. We've got templates that we have designed, based on our needs. And I've really worked hard to learn it. And, some of these systems have taken me a solid 40-hour work week to figure out. And it is continuing to change and evolve and grow as we grow. But Asana is home base. It's command center for, all of our process, all of our projects, all of our tasks. And I could not live without it.
I use Asana at my job too. I love it. It's so great for, I don't know, just for knowing what everyone is doing and keeping myself on task, keeping everyone else on task. And it's just crazy because I'm, work at a software company and it's I think that tool can, be applicable for many, many industries.
Oh, absolutely. And used so differently for different industries too, right? Like you would have no need to use the timeline view to like see all the different phases of a design project.
Yeah.
But even a graphic designer or anybody who's managing a project can use that to forecast. We use that to figure out how many projects we can take on. I love that it has, the ability to integrate other things into it. So now that we're using Toggle, you can run time trackers right in Asana, which is really helpful. And what else? There was something else I was going to say about Asana. It's the first place that we go in the morning to figure out what we're going to do. And it's where a lot of the communication takes place. Sometimes communication can get lost, and that's where we implemented Voxer. So Voxer is kind of like a walkie-talkie app. It's kind of like you can leave voicemails for multiple members. I guess you could do it for friends, but we use it within our organization to kind of like, hey, I need this like right now. Can you help me? Or just FYI, I'm running 5 minutes behind, without having to pick up the phone and call or interrupt the train of thought, because productivity matters to me and I don't want to interrupt somebody's, focused time. So it also gives me the ability to have a very quick verbal communication with my copywriter who lives in Switzerland. So we're, substantially different time zones, but we can still go back and forth on Voxer. And then it's also multi-team. So multi-team member. So I've got my copywriter, my graphic designer, and myself on one of our Voxer chats. And so as we've been updating my website with the pivots, we've all been able to go back and forth on the same thread essentially, which has been super nice.
Wow. Is that on the desktop that you use, or is that an app on your phone?
It's on my phone.
Oh, wow. That seems really, really handy.
Yeah. And it's free.
Yeah. Wow.
I know.
We do have another question in regards to Asana. So did either of us look at other platforms like Basecamp or Monday.com before deciding on Asana?
Yeah, I looked at a lot of different ones. I looked at Basecamp, which it seemed too broad for what I was looking for. Asana seemed simple compared to, the other things that I looked at. I know Trello is another one that people love. Monday launched after we've been with Asana for years, and I think Monday is something I'm just starting to hear about. So I don't know much about Monday, but I get ads for it all the time. So I must be a target market.
I know, I get ads for Monday all the time, but I chose Asana pretty recently when I compared. I think I was mainly between Asana, Monday, and Trello. But Asana, I loved how you were able to also, make attachments and, make various templates. I needed it to be very specific, but also still see like a high level timeline. So I really like that. I'm still trying to figure out the communication piece, because I know you can, communicate internally there, but I never want to get lost between people. But overall, I'm really happy with Asana. And they keep on, adding more integrations, which I think is super, super helpful, whether it's, through the G Suite or, whatever other tools you use.
Yeah. I tend to be the kind of creative where like everything lives in my head, and somehow I manage to get everything done because I think of it and it happens, and I'm obsessive and type A. And so I'm always like, okay, what's coming next? What's coming next? And using a tool like Asana almost is like a brain dump, and I think the biggest thing that's helped us with because the communication, you can get lost in communication there. You can miss stuff. And so what we have pretty much implemented for our team is you have to task somebody else. Like you have to put it like a due date on it, task them. It has to be on their to-do list, because that's where we all check is our tasks. Sometimes the inbox is not the most efficient tool for us. So that's definitely the workaround that we found.
Yeah, that's a great little insight, especially as I'm starting to learn how best to utilize Asana.
Yeah. So, like Kennedy, our technical designer, when she's done with a project and it's time for me to do the final review, instead of like, hey, I'm all finished, like I need you to check over it before we can present it to the client, I want her to task me. Like it needs to go on my list. You need to tell me that I have to do this project review by Thursday in order for you to keep your deadline. So it's helpful.
And I also think forming those expectations with your team is important. So how has it been, forming expectations for how to utilize all of these systems within your team? What was that process like, for making a process like this is what we're using and just sticking with that?
That's like a whole boss growth conversation, right? Because as you go from the person who's doing everything themselves, and sometimes you feel bad asking someone to do something for you, until your organization grows to the level where you can't be doing all the pieces, or you will fail and everyone will fail. So for us, it's a constant renegotiation of what's working, what's not working, who likes using what, how they like using it. It's never like a set it and forget it. It is, like we just implement, I've been using Voxer with a couple of the remote teammates, but then I just brought it in-house too. And it's working. And it's always like there's a precedent we have to set, right? Like I made it very clear when I send a Voxer message, the expectation is not that you listen to it immediately. And this is your primary form of communication. And this is not, my expectation is not that you're available to me any time of the day. Like this is outside of your phone's inbox, so you can use it as a tool during the workday. I don't want to be leaving messages for you at 9 p.m, but if I think of something at 9 p.m, I can Voxer and it'll be there for you in the morning. So it's just that constant renegotiating of expectations.
Yeah, and just briefly, can you describe your team, where everyone is located, just so we can have an idea of how this works?
Yeah. So I'm here in San Antonio, and then Kennedy, my technical designer, is also here in San Antonio. And having her local is very important because we do a lot of hands-on work here in town. My online business manager, who handles Asana and Dubsado and a lot of Dropbox and things, she is in Del Rio, Texas. And then my graphic designer is in Oregon. My copywriter is in Switzerland. My bookkeeper and CEO and CPA are in Georgia. And then I also have a business coach that's in Georgia. And, I rely on freelancers here and there to help keep things afloat here. But we've got a lot of local trades that help as well. My work is truly a collection of so many people's hands. And, there are dozens of people that go into the final product for what we do.
Yeah. Wow. It seems like it's a really, really cool, network of your team and where you have everyone. Can you speak a little briefly to the business coach and how you found your business coach and when you got one?
Yeah. So I've had two over the course of my business. The first one kind of helped me scale and hire my first employee. And it was more of like an organizational, like I don't have a background in interior design. I have a background in art and business. So, bringing that, that wisdom to the table was one piece of the puzzle, but I knew that we wanted to do drawings and I wanted to, make sure that we could up level on the design side. So I knew at some point I would have to hire an interior designer with a degree. So that was, kind of the next step in the process. And she helped me, had me first read the E-Myth, which is an amazing book. And I recommend that always because it helps set the dynamic of a team and a well-functioning team. So I would be CEO visionary. Kennedy is our technical designer. And then I would say our online business manager and bookkeeper would be our managers, if you're looking at the E-Myth triad. And then once I got to the point where I no longer needed what that coach was offering, I transitioned into a profitability coach. And again, she's unique to my industry and has brought me some of the financial knowledge that I didn't have. And it wasn't like my innate gift. Help me understand P&Ls and balance sheets and all the things that you need as a CEO to function. So I've been working with her for 3 years, and business last year tripled. So it's been a substantial scale with the right help and the right pieces of the puzzle in place.
Wow, that's awesome. And also, I guess you saw immediate impacts on the business as well. So
which mostly was because it impacted me, right? Like that's right, the right person on your side can do for you, is not only help you with all of this management CEO stuff, but also what's the next move for your business? How is this going to make your life better? How is this going to improve your quality of life?
Yeah. And why, I guess that's an interesting, you know, statement that you don't always hear business owners speak to, just having your business improve the quality of your life. So why is that important to you?
Well, first and foremost, I'm a mom. I try to only work when my kids are in school. The pandemic was really eye-opening for my kids, because for the first time they saw I had a job, because I couldn't not work when they were home. You know, my husband is a very, very busy surgeon, and he is not home to help a lot of the time. So I had to make sure that I could create a career for myself that served my family as generally the primary parent. I like to pick my kids up right after school. It's important to me that they're not in daycare before and after school. And creating this business kind of around that schedule has made me really focus on the priorities. Like, how big do I want to scale? Like, how big feels right? Do I want to just have all this revenue and pay all these people to do things? Is that actually increasing my personal profitability, or is that just increasing my stress load because I'm managing all of these other salaries and the business that it takes to pay those salaries? So it's a constant renegotiation. And then the other part of that is my husband's active duty military. So I have to be really sensitive to, we think that we're going to be here for another 10 years, but there is a possibility that isn't our reality. And so I have to plan for what this business structure looks like. And can I pick it up and take it? Or do I just lose everything if we get orders to go somewhere else?
Yeah. Wow. That's a really, great way to think of the business and manage your own time as well. So I guess with that said, you know, scaling up your business currently, are you still, you know, do you feel like you have the capacity, you know, team wise or yourself to continue to scale up, or what's that like right now?
The current dinner conversation every single night. I've got such big dreams, and I can see what this can be. And do I want a retail storefront?
Yeah.
Do I want to be able to sell products? Do I want to, you know, offer a quicker pace? Like right now we're full for the year. And so the constant question is, do I hire somebody else so we can move faster, or is this enough? You know, what do those numbers look like? Because it's all math, right? Like, so I bring somebody else on and I have another salary I have to pay for. How many projects is it going to take to support that salary? Is that going to increase my quality of life? Or are we just going to have to be okay with having a 12 to 16 week waiting list? Like, I have to figure those things out. And I would be a fraud if I sat here in front of you and told you that I know the answer, because I don't. It changes. And I'm afraid right now with COVID, like, what if this is just a boom in our business and then everything levels out? It's a constant conversation.
Yeah. Big question, and appreciate the honesty.
Yeah.
And I think going back to the question, I really like how you pointed out, you know, when you're asking yourself these things, you say, is it going to increase my quality of life? I think that's, you know, a huge takeaway when making business decisions that you don't hear, you know, not many CEOs, that's the question that, you know, they're always asking. So that's, you know, really authentic, and really appreciate that.
Yeah. You know, I think tech kind of acts as another employee, if I think about it.
Yeah.
You know, what can I hand off for it to manage for me? What can I automate so it does it for me, so I don't have to do it? And I'm constantly looking, and, you know, I just listened to a podcast this weekend with Brene Brown on the concept of being stretchy and scrappy. Like, how can you make the tools that you have work super hard for you? And maybe they don't feel like they're enough. Maybe you feel like you need a little bit more. But if you have everything that you need in abundance, then you may not use everything that you have because you have enough. But, you know, I'm trying to stretch all these tools and make the most out of them before I make that next hire and that next move.
Yeah. And then question about the tech. So for people in maybe the creative industry or space that don't really utilize these tools, and they're kind of put off by the initial upfront investment, both time and money, like what would you have to say to them?
I think start with the free plan. Always start with the free plan and see if that works for you. I will say the hardest part about integrating tech is the very first time you sit down to try and use it, because it makes you feel like an idiot, right? Because you can't, sometimes it's really hard to figure out. Brene Brown calls it the FFT, and you can go look at her podcast. I won't swear on this podcast or this session, but it's the effing first time. And that makes you really frustrated and angry. And anytime you try and figure out something for the first time, it's really hard and it feels sticky and not good. And I kind of feel that way right now with Toggle, as we're switching from what we're using right now into a new time management software. So I would say the best thing is to stick with it. If after like 4 weeks, you've invested your time and you've gone through all the tutorials and the YouTube videos and it still doesn't feel right, it's okay to like be ruthless and cut it and say, this is not working for me. I need something else. I don't like the way it looks. I don't like the colors. I don't like the platform. Like it can be as dumb as I don't like the colors. Like that's okay.
Especially if you have to use it every day, you want it to be user-friendly and you want to enjoy it for the most part, I think.
Yeah.
Awesome.
For sure.
Well, yeah. Are there any other slides? Yeah, I'd love to hear about the other tools.
Yeah.
Before we close up.
So marketing, I think this is the last one.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. But marketing, we use Flowdesk for all of our emails, which is a new beautiful email list creator with some templates that are much prettier than like your standard MailChimp. They're just, it's a visual experience when you get these emails. Facebook, I have my own feelings about Facebook. I push a lot of stuff there, but it's not something that I prioritize. Instagram obviously is a priority. And the next strategic phase of my business is going to be Pinterest, because Pinterest is a place where people go to shop. And I think it's the visual search engine right now. And so any creative business who doesn't have a presence on Pinterest, I think is going to lose some market share.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So yes, everyone should follow her on Instagram. I loved going through your posts and looking at the website. I was feeling so inspired.
Oh, good. That's the goal. I like to put design right in front of you, so it becomes an achievable goal. Because we've gone through medical school and all of these things, I have a background in coming from not a lot and trying to figure out how to make life beautiful when you don't have a ton of resources or you're moving every so often. And it doesn't always take a lot of money to create a beautiful space. Now, if you want someone to create it for you, then it costs money. But we like to give you tips to help you.
Yeah. Have you seen any, I guess you kind of mentioned this, but a change in your clientele since COVID hit? Maybe, I don't know, different age groups or different segments of the population that are inquiring about your services?
We have gone after a market that most interior designers aren't interested in. And that market, kind of the way that we look at things is we've got kind of the Target and IKEA shoppers, right? That's going to be like our budget conscious, like we don't have a ton of money to spend on a room. And then we have our mid-market options, which would be your Pottery Barn, your Restoration Hardware, your West Elm shoppers. And then we have the luxury spenders who are looking to buy at the showroom. So most interior designers will want the people who want to shop at the showroom. What we have done is create a virtual design deliverable for this mid-market group who does want to do some of the heavy lifting themselves. They want to order themselves, they want to shop the sales, and most designers won't touch that market with a 10-foot pole because it's tricky to be profitable in that market. So, I've reconfigured the whole business structure to really create a plan and find people who just want a plan, and then they are going to implement it. And we give such a clear deliverable. Like we tell you right down to, you need that rug 18 inches from this corner and 24 inches from this corner. And so it's like a foolproof installation guide. And most designers will do everything for you. And we'll do that too. We have a luxury level design, but in the era of COVID and, really looking at how everyone is shopping online, everyone's shopping online. That's changing every industry. I think that more people are comfortable shopping online, and that will for sure and has already changed my industry. completely.
Wow. That sort of service level seems great, especially for clients who maybe have like you mentioned, you have lots of first time clients that are going to get this professional help. So that's a great way to do it, especially when you're able to shop the sales yourself.
Yeah.
People, of course, are savvy shoppers. Awesome.
Absolutely. Yep.
Cool. Well, I would love time for any Q&A for people watching, or if there's anything else that you would love to touch on. We have a few minutes. I'll look at the Q&A chat briefly. I guess we kind of touched on this, but it was another question. When using a new tech tool for your business, did you learn by tutorial videos, or did you find someone who is well versed in it and get their help?
I would say sort of both. Most of the platforms that I've used, I have spent a significant amount of time on YouTube and on, you know, whatever instructional videos that platform will send to help kind of onboard you. And a lot of times they'll do like a 30-minute walkthrough. And so I always take advantage of any live calls that platform is going to give me to kind of get me set up. The only things I've hired out for, I would say, eventually I hired out Asana partially. I still manage a lot of it myself. So my online business manager will do Asana. She does, like I said, all of the Dipsado. And then my designer will do a lot of the Photoshop stuff, and then I'll SketchUp. So it's a combination, but like we talked about, I think you have to be responsible for learning how all of these things work if you want to be effective at your job, at really figuring out what tech is working and what tech is not.
Yeah. And then I had one question. I just want to know about the name Styleberry and how that came to fruition.
The $1 million question. Okay, so this was back in 2008. I had just moved to San Antonio from Omaha, Nebraska, and I wanted to start a blog. And back then, I mean, we were on Blogger. Like that was the only thing that was out there. And I knew I loved style and design. And I also knew that I found health and wellness really important. And I was baking in my kitchen one night, and I had a notebook, and I was baking these cranberry oat muffins. And I was just like writing style, and like all these different names for interior design. And then I was also like writing all these cooking names because I knew it was going to kind of be both. And back in the day it was. And so Styleberry was the one that stuck, and it's been around since then.
It's a great name. I love it.
Thanks. It's different.
Yeah. Well, I think we're, we had no more Q&A, but we can go ahead and wrap up. Really loved everything you had to say. I hope everyone can, rewatch this and learn a lot. I know I learned a lot, and I'm in a completely different industry. So your point that, tech has no limits on what industry, so true. So,
yeah.
On behalf of the San Antonio Startup Week team, thanks so much for your time and putting together those slides and just sharing your knowledge with everyone. So really appreciated.
Thanks, Amy. It was great to chat with you.
Yes, you too. Hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.